Continuing on from last time, we're still talking about how people define and understand nations so we can understand different perspectives on nationalism. Another common way of defining a nation is through geography, and I don't mean state lines drawn on a map. I mean geographic features that separate people from one another so that they develop in their own way and they have unity based off of we are the people that occupy this area and other people don't get into it easily. You often see this involving mountains, deserts, or oceans because those are particularly difficult geographic barriers to cross. So an example of this is Tibet, and we will talk about Tibet a lot this year, I'm sure. Tibet is in the Himalaya mountain range, the tallest mountain range on the planet. And that is particularly difficult to get into and out of. So we actually have a map of the Himalayas down below, and even though Tibet is not super clearly defined on it, you can see the borders if you squint and you've got good eyes, but you can see roughly where it is because you can see the geography of the Himalayas defining it. And right now, Tibet is part of China, but they have advocated, based off of their cultural uniqueness that has developed because of their geographic isolation, that they should in fact be an independent nation state, and that has been a challenge that has been ongoing for a very long time. You can also define a nation through its relationship to the land. Again, not state lines, but different resources that are available in an area shape the land, and they can inspire people to look at things in a different way. They cause culture to develop in different ways too. You could also have a religious understanding of a nation, and many nations do, and this has happened many times throughout the course of history, by all sharing a common religion that creates a type of unity, or at least with most of a nation viewing itself as sharing a common religion. And sometimes that can be incredibly broad, sometimes that can be very, very, very specific. One of the best examples of this is actually the Jewish nation. And when I say Jewish nation, I don't mean Israel, I mean Jewish nation across Judaism. Throughout the history of the Jewish people, they have been spread across, sometimes willingly, oftentimes not, many different countries. They have developed distinct cultures and languages, but a sense of common belonging to one people has survived because of their shared religious belief. In the Torah, it's taught that Jews are a nation, no matter whether they are physically together or separated from each other, and that has created a sense of unity across the people who follow that faith. And it's not just Judaism. There have been many nations that have defined themselves religiously, but there are also other people who do the same thing. They are one nation, whether or not they're physically together. Another one that we see a lot in Canada is Ismaili Shia Islam, which has its own shared sense of belonging, even though they come from many, many very different ethnic and religious, or ethnic and linguistic backgrounds, many very different cultures. They are united by their religion across many different places in the planet. We can also have a spiritual understanding of a nation. Spiritualism and religion are not actually the same thing. Spiritualism is less about practice and more about growth and development and connection. So, in terms of spiritual understanding of a nation, we can look here in Alberta at the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederation. And right along that western border, we see several sites that are sacred to the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy. We can see Crow's Nest Mountain. We can see Okotoks itself is actually a sacred site because it features prominently in their creation stories that have been passed down through the generations. This is one of those sites, Ninaistako. And Ninaistako is in the US, it's in Montana, but you can see it in southern Alberta. And there absolutely is a sense of belonging to a greater part of the land that transcends Canada and the United States because of that shared spiritual connection to this mountain and to the other locations that have featured prominently in those spiritual stories. And of course, we have a political understanding of a nation. If people desire sovereignty or have sovereignty, which means they have control over their own territory, that is, of course, another way of understanding nations. And once again, we can go back to Tibet here. We can go to Kurdistan as well, and we can go to many places across the globe. South Sudan was a very recent one, relatively speaking, that successfully gained their own sovereignty and became their own nation. People can advocate, and advocate can also mean fight for their ability to control their own destinies and to control their own nation. And that struggle together is something that can unify people too.